Hey, New Patient Group Nation, welcome inside the broadcast booth. Brian right here riding solo today, and welcome to Season 2, Episode number 14. Going to be talking today about Got-a-Minute meetings. That's the descriptor from the Ultimate Sales Machine book written by Chet Holmes, and that is a fabulous book. It's the second assignment that we give our management team members that are clients of ours, so they read the 4 disciplines of execution that you guys have heard me reference in this podcast so many times, and the second one is the Ultimate Sales Machine. That book talks about a lot of stuff that backs what our time efficiency strategies of billionaires is. And today we're going to be taking a piece out of that time efficiency strategies of billionaires course that we put management team members through. And I'm going to talk about Got-a-Minute meetings. Now this is really particular to office managers out there. So office managers, we have quite a few of you that listen out there. This is really intended to help you maximize the success of your time. How do you multiply yourself when there's only one of you? But this is also great for other management, doctor CEOs out there, and other management team members. This will apply to you as well. So we'll dive in. Great episode today. And before we get started, let's fire up the music.
Welcome to the New Patient Group podcast, where doctors and other healthcare professionals crush their competition with innovative business, marketing, psychology, and entrepreneurial strategies. Learn how to better the patient experience, improve employee and management performance, and how to best increase conversions, efficiencies, referrals, profitability, revenue, and more. Learn from 5-star customer service, psychology, business, and marketing gurus, top producing clinicians, and the most successful entrepreneurs throughout a multitude of industries. Now your hosts, practicing doctor and president of OfficeAutomated.com, Robert Barton, and the CEO of New Patient Group, consultant and speaker for Align Technology, the makers of Invisalign, author for the Benson Koppel Resource, featured in the Dental Economics Ask the Expert section, and international 5-star customer service guru and life coach, with companies featured in Forbes, CNBC, and the National Journal, Brian Wright.
Hey everybody, welcome inside the broadcast booth. Great episode for you today. Just getting back from Toronto. I was actually there. I watched the second half of the game after the event that I spoke at. I actually spoke at a couple events, and thank you so much for those that recruited heavily for them. The audience was fantastic. But then we got into a restaurant after the event, sat down there. The head chef, the bartender was actually after the restaurant closed, and we all had a great time and watched the second half of the game where Toronto won the World Championship. So congratulations to the Toronto Raptors out there. Today we're going to get into a small piece of a larger puzzle, and it's called our time efficiency strategies of billionaires. One of the things we do when we're inside a practice is we transform. You hear me talk about it, but there's so many things that famous entrepreneurs do. If you watch Shark Tank, people like that, a lot of them run their business very similar, regardless of what their business is. And a lot of the things that they do, we take and we implement inside the practice. That is what our time efficiency strategies of billionaires course is. It's the things that I do to manage my time at a high level, because I obviously have a lot of things going on. And we try to implement this the best way we can in order to give the office managers, the doctors, and really just the management team members, how do you multiply yourself into multiple people when it's only you? And there's a lot of inefficiencies in businesses from a time management and efficiency standpoint that really cause a lot of things. It's a domino effect, right? If you need to do A, B, and C and you don't have time to get to them, it can affect D, E, and F as an example. And what we want to do today, it's not going to be a long podcast, but what we're going to do is talk about our Got-a-Minute meetings. Now, there's a book, and you heard me talk about it at the intro, and I highly suggest everybody out there read it. It's The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. There's a lot of things in there that back the teachings that we do. And for those of you that are new to our podcast, we don't go and read books and then say, okay, let's take a program from that and implement it. What we do is we implement it and have ideas and courses. At the same time, we're constantly reading and finding books that back our teachings, because the teachings that we discuss are very different than what a normal healthcare consultant would teach, because we come from the entrepreneur side of things and the commercial side of things. We just happen to know the practice environment inside and out. So a lot of the teachings are very different than what other healthcare consultants teach because they don't know to teach these things. It's not a criticism. It's just their area of expertise is in a different area than a lot of ours. So what we're going to talk about today is our Got a Minute meetings. That is the reference that the Ultimate Sales Machine book reads. Now, in order, you want to read the 4 Disciplines of Execution as your first business book for those that listen out there. Once you complete that, the next one is the Ultimate Sales Machine. I prefer you read them in that order. Is it the end of the world if you don't? Of course not. But I think reading them in that order is going to best suit what you're going to get out of it, long story short. Now today, the Got a Minute meetings. Look, you guys know, office managers out there, doctors out there, you guys know that every other second you have somebody knocking on your door, pulling on your shirt. Hey, you got a minute? Can you do this for me? I need this. They're putting a sticky note by you. Whatever it might be, you're being pulled in a million different directions. And honestly, those million different directions, a lot of that deters you from actually growing the business. And that is that reference of the whirlwind that they call it in the 4 Disciplines of Execution. Those things, if you remember, if you listen often, you've heard me talk about this multiple times, were the same things that you have to do just to keep your doors open. Clinician being inside the mouth, office manager babysitting the employees. Those same things are ironically the same things that actually keep you from progressing your business forward on a consistent, ever-going, ongoing basis. So what we try to do with the time efficiency strategies of billionaires is, and there's a lot of things that go into that course, how you manage your emails, how you manage your tasks. There's so many different things that go in that. And for those of you that have our Practice Virtual platform, really that Practice Virtual platform is time efficiency strategies of billionaires all lumped into one digital platform for your business. But the hourly meetings is another example that you've heard me talk about that actually the Ultimate Sales Machine references as well. That is from our time efficiency strategies of billionaires. So for those of you that have listened to the podcast about those hour weekly meetings, it's another example. Today's specifically, and it's not going to be a long podcast, today's specifically is how you manage your time with employees that are constantly asking you for your time. Got a minute? Can you do this for me? I need to talk to you about this. Hey, I've got an emergency, which we all know the emergencies 9 times out of 10 are not an emergency. That's the funny thing with humans. If we want an answer to something, we feel like we've got to get it right now. Most of the time, if we don't get an answer right now, it's really not that big of a deal, other than the fact we think it is because we want the answer right now. So what the Got a Minute meetings are, and it's very simple, is office managers out there, doctors out there, define 2 times a week. This is so simple. Now, the challenge, as you hear me talk about it all the time, is going to be changing behavior of not doing it this way. And the Ultimate Sales Machine book has an example where they get what I'm about to teach you, they get it implemented on a Thursday. All right, which, by the way, guys, if you're going to implement new things, I highly suggest doing it the early in the week, the better, because of the reason I'm about to say. It's amazing what happens over the weekend. So they get it implemented on a Thursday, right? Come Friday, the book talks about how this manager in this leadership team, they're just blown away with how much time they have that has been opened up on that Friday. They almost don't know what to do with themselves because they're like, wow, I mean, all this time I normally spend dealing with employees, nobody's coming to me. This is amazing. I love this. Well, sure enough, Monday morning comes and they tell the story about, you would think we never even implemented it to begin with. That weekend, it's like everybody forgot about it and it went right back to where it was. And remember, the employees will always try to break you. You're trying to implement a system, a lot of times they're going to tell you why it won't work, why they don't want to do it, their reasoning, blah, blah, blah. And then the next thing you know, office manager and or doctor CEO, they cave in and it's back to where it was. So come Monday morning, the book talks about one, like I said, everybody just pretended like the protocol was never even implemented to begin with. So that Friday, it was fantastic. But sure enough, behavioral change, everybody went right back to how it was on Monday. But the reason why it worked is because that management team, and this is what you guys are going to have to do once we get this implemented today, that management team said to the people that were coming to them, hey, look, no, the new protocol, the new system is this. You have defined times that you are allowed to come to me to discuss these things, and you are breaking the protocol. So you can go follow it the way it was supposed to as implemented on Thursday. And that is the reason why the story goes where that particular organization that they reference in the book, that is why it worked for them, because the employees go, all right, we're not going to break as much as we're going to try. We seem to not be able to break management on this. And eventually it became habit. And story goes to this day, it works really well. So the challenge is going to be when you guys implement this management listening, are you going to be the management team that says, okay, we'll break the system, I understand, and then it all goes down the toilet? Or are you going to be the management team that's leaders that say the second somebody tries to break this, are you going to stand strong and say, no, you need to follow the system. This is the new way we're doing it. And we're not going to tolerate it being any other way than this. And you have a choice. And hopefully the choice is the latter, because this is something that will absolutely give you more time and you are going to love it. So let's get into this. Very simple. All right. So you define 2 times a week. The beauty is you get to define them whenever you want, and they can always change. All right. You go for 3 months and you don't like the way the times are defined, then you change it. It's that simple. You alter it to fix any of the problems that you see arising from this. So the way this works is 2 times a week, you're going to define 30 minutes each time. All right. So we've talked about the past. We have the hour weekly meeting where it's organizational or even departmental or a combination of both. That way you get time to work on your business, time to practice with your employees, time to set expectations, things like that. Now you have 2 times a week that are defined 30 minutes. Let's pretend that it's first thing Monday morning and first thing Thursday morning. All right. Again, you get to pick the time, so it doesn't matter to us, but they need to be defined. They need to be on your schedule. And this doesn't mean they're blocked where you're not doing anything. What this means is that all of those times that employees are coming to you saying, Nancy, please, can I have a minute of your time? Susie, do you have a second? I need to talk with you. Bobby, I need you to answer this question. You guys get the point. You're probably laughing out there as I'm talking because you see it all day. People are pulling you in a million directions. The reality of the situation is when they are pulling you in a million directions, 95+% of it is not anything that needs to be done now. Again, though, they feel it is because it's something that they feel they need right now. So after you define your times, you can do it a couple different ways. We suggest a sign-up sheet where people are signing up for your time. As an example, imagine a template that's pasted outside your office door, or outside your when I say office, I'm talking about the office manager's office within the practice, that says employee name, time, subject, as an example. Okay, it doesn't have to be that. You can come up with whatever one you want, but it's a first come, first serve. So I, as Brian Wright, I can come in there, I can say, Brian Wright, time is, I want to see you first thing 8 o'clock Monday morning, and the subject is blah, blah, blah. All right. And I am the first on the sign-up sheet, meaning come Monday morning when you have your defined 30 minutes that you are allowed to go speak to the office manager to get things done, to get things answered, then I'm going to be first come, first serve because I am on that sheet. Or you can simply do it without a sign-up sheet and it's first come, first serve. The first person standing at your door come 8 o'clock Monday morning is the first person that gets seen. Now, employees out there, this is what you have to do. And managers, and doctors, this is what you need to train your employees on. As the week goes, you need to write down things that are questions that you have. All right. Now, emergencies such as, hey, patient Mr. Jones is about to walk out the door if we don't give him an extra 5% discount. All right. That is something that you need to get up, go to the office manager for and say, can I get permission to give him this extra $300 off? He says, if we do, he's buying today. Okay. That is an example of something that needs to happen now. Or Mrs. Jones just blew up her tooth and we have no place on the schedule. And if you guys don't already have a defined protocol for that, you should. That way, this is not an emergency. The receptionist knows exactly how to handle it. But a lot of times, if you don't have a system, that would be considered an emergency. You got to find out if you can schedule and bring it in. So forget those things. These are all the other things that come up throughout the day. You guys know them better than me. There's hundreds of examples where they don't need to be talked about now. And the issue is, and the book talks about this, concentration is like a muscle. And I'm going to give you an example. Today, the broadcast booth, we're not traveling. I'm at my home office doing the podcast today. And 3 separate times I tried to do this podcast today where my 3 and 2-year-old kept barging into my office and interrupting. And the issue with content, when you're creating content, whether it be videos or a podcast, every single podcast you do needs to be excellent. There's people listening. It could be the first time they ever tuned in. And remember that example that I talked about on one podcast and that video that went out to so many of you. When my wife and I were in downtown Houston for a few days, we went out and watched some Astros games. And the hotel we were staying at was just fabulous. And the first day we were there, the next morning, after the first night we were there, went into that restaurant to have brunch. And it was just fantastic. The experience was great, blah, blah, blah. So therefore, we went back the next day. And it was terrible. Head chef wasn't there. I knew it from almost the minute we went in. I asked the waiter to confirm. The whole experience was different. It just wasn't good. So if that was the first day we went, we never would have gone back. And it's no different with this podcast. If you're the first time you've ever listened before, using that restaurant analogy, and the first one you hear is fantastic, well, you're going to come back for more. But if the first one you hear is not so good, you're likely to not give the second podcast a chance. So every time we put out content, we want it to be great. We want it to be a learning fest. We want it to really, when you guys get done, say that was well worth my time. Because a lot of these podcasts are longer. They're more like a radio program. So the point being in the analogy of all this is that when you're concentrating like I was and really ready to put out some good content and you get interrupted, it's very challenging to go back and produce it at the same level. Like this podcast today, guys, if I didn't get interrupted like I'm talking about by my 3 and 2-year-old, the first time I was doing this podcast, it probably would have been better than what this podcast actually is. And it's not that this one's bad. That's not what I'm trying to say. But the point is when you're concentrating on one thing and you get interrupted at your practice, it is very difficult to get back into concentration mode to do it as well as you otherwise would. Doesn't mean that you won't complete it. Doesn't mean that you won't complete it well. Like this podcast today is good information. It's going to help you. But there's these little intricacies when you public speak. Whenever I keynote speak, I always afterwards kind of analyze the night, whether the feedback is fantastic or really good, whatever it may be. I go, you know what? I really wish I would have said A, B, and C instead of D, E, and F at that time, because the way you talk and the way you analyze and the way you present, people are able to comprehend it at levels and go back and implement it better, because it's all about making sure people leave and go implement this stuff, no different than this podcast. So the point of all of this is concentration is like a muscle. It deflates easily, and it's hard to get it back. You guys all know when you're lifting weights, you feel so good when you're leaving. Your muscles feel tight, feel good, feel in shape. And it's difficult to keep them that way. It's very easy to have them deflate. I think we all wish, God willing, it would be the other way around, but the reality of the situation is it's not. So there's so many times a day, office managers, other management team members, where you get interrupted when you are trying to do something. And that when you're trying to do is almost always more important than the thing you were interrupted for. And it deflates your concentration. And it is extremely difficult, no different than this podcast today talking about my kids interrupting me. It's extremely difficult to get back into the mindset of doing it at the level that you otherwise would. So just from not getting interrupted anymore, you will not know what to do with your time. You'll all of a sudden go, geez, I didn't realize I had this much time floating around if we just change these things. But the employees are going to try to break you. And it's such a simple protocol. All the you got a minute, all the questions that you get on a daily basis, they're no longer random. They're allowed to bring them to you at defined times twice a week for 30 minutes each. And you know what? You may realize that those times you picked are bad. So instead of going, we're just going to wax the whole thing, say, look, we're going to change the times. And we're going to keep adjusting them until I believe, as the office manager, as the doctor CEO, or both, we've got them down well. This is no different from a time efficiency strategies of billionaires. The office manager and doctor should meet at a high level on a biweekly basis. Twice a month, you guys have a management meeting that goes over your employee performance indicators. For the clients out there tracking stats that actually matter, that's what our EPI stat dashboard is, that you've heard me talk about so many times. It's to minimize the lost opportunities and give you visibility of them so you can in turn bonus them, which, by the way, we're going to have an upcoming podcast all about talking about how to bonus employees, shifting the mindset on how it's always been with bonusing on production, treatment starts, and things like that, and shifting it to an entirely different way of thinking. But that's another time efficiency strategy of billionaire, is that 2 times a month, basically every other week, where manager and doctor, CEO, you guys are meeting to go over your business. That needs to be blocked about 30 minutes every other week. See, now you have these hour weekly meetings to work on your business. You have 2 30-minute blocks a week where the employees are allowed to go to the office manager or doctor and say, hey, look, I got a question. Then you have 2 30-minute blocked a month where the office manager and doctor meet. Now, that is setting you up to run a real business. Have oversight. Because remember, CEOs out there, doctors, you are the visionary. That's what a CEO is. You are constantly providing the growth strategies and innovation to keep your business rolling and remain ahead of the competition. That's your job. Your COO's job, which is really what your office manager is listening out there, we'd like to change titles. Chief Operational Officer is really what the office manager is. All right? It's their job to ensure the vision of the CEO actually gets carried out by the team. That's your job, office managers. It's not to babysit the team. It's not to be a genius at the practice management software to handle accounting. Your job is to ensure that the visionary CEO, that is implemented and the employees are carrying it out to ensure it happens. That's the job. Now, in healthcare, it's not necessarily looked at that way, but that's the reality of the situation. Now, you can be all the above, but you can only be all the above if you manage your time at the best levels possible. So going back to this protocol simple, I want to review it. 2 30-minute blocks every single week. You can pick them whenever you want. And first come, first serve, or a sign-up sheet. And they can talk about whatever they want to talk about with you. And it's that simple. It's something that can be implemented right after you hear this podcast. You can work on picking your times and implement it and announce it to the team the next week, which is perfect because if you have your hourly, weekly meeting like we talked about, there's a podcast a couple back, actually, I think it was 2 or 3 back, that just talks about 3 things. I don't remember the title, but it's the 3 things that are essential to growing a practice, and it talks about the weekly meeting. But when you have those weekly meetings, that gives you the perfect time to announce new things like this, your expectations like this. And that's why it helps you with your time efficiency so much. It ends people knocking on your door unless it is a true emergency. If you hear that now knock and you say make-believe name, hey, Nancy, if you hear that, it's an emergency, or at least it should be. And if it's not, your response to them is that can wait to tomorrow, and you can sign up on the sheet outside the door, and we can talk about it then. Now, it's going to be difficult. They're going to try to push you. You're going to want to answer it too. If it's a quick answer, yes or no, you're going to want to give that answer. You have to fight the resistance because if you give the answer, it shows them that the protocol, you're not serious about it. So no matter how simple the answer, because a lot of people say, oh, it's just a yes or no, it's no big deal. The point is it's an interruption. It's an interruption from you doing what you need to do as the COO to make sure the CEO's innovation is carried out. And there's all kinds of things, office managers, that you know you have to do every single day. So the less interruptions you have, again, it goes back to the muscle. It's the stronger your muscle is, the less interruptions you have. So you've got your hour weekly meeting. You've got your 2 30-minute blocks in the schedule where your employees are allowed to come talk to you about things. First come, first serve, or actually create a sign-up sheet that they do. Doesn't matter where you keep it. If they sign up third and you only get through the first 2, well, that person needs to wait until the following 30-minute block. They'll automatically become first in the list for that next meeting. There's going to be complaints, but even the employees at our practices, the employees love it after they get used to it. You're never going to get used to it if nobody enforces it. Office managers that we have, they love this. They almost don't know what to do with their time once it opens up so much more time because people aren't running in. And obviously, if you have a team of 50 or 30 or 20, there's going to be more interruptions than if you have a team of 3. But the point is that the time efficiency strategies of billionaires is important no matter what your size. We hear all the time, oh, we're a team of 5. What do we need a task manager for? A digital office manual or a message center that's all integrated in with itself? Well, I hate to tell you guys out there, if you're a smaller team, you could make the argument that the tools that the big businesses have because they have a lot of employees are almost more important for you because the better business is beating the better practice now. The better CEO is beating the better clinician. So if you have a small team, you could actually make the argument for you have less room for error, so those things almost become more important for different reasons than it does with a big team. So don't be the person out there that goes, we have a small team, we're a family-owned place, so we shouldn't run it like None of this is a detractor from the family-owned business. These business tools brought into the family-owned business only allow you to take care, and remember, it always goes back to the patient. The more efficient you are with your time, I'm going to repeat this, the more efficient you are with your time, the better experience you can provide your clientele, your customers, your patients, whatever you want to call them. They're all the same. They're a paying person to your business. So regardless of what you want to call them, it doesn't really matter. But the more efficient you are, the better customer service you will provide. Because every ounce of your effort that you possibly can should be focused on the patient care. It's why we're going to talk about some outsourcing ideas and why entrepreneurs look at outsourcing different than clinicians. We just have a matter of fact, it's a perfect example of it today. I'm going to reference in that podcast about shifting the clinical mindset into an entrepreneur mindset and looking at money differently and things like that. That's going to be one of the upcoming podcasts as well. And all of this, guys, is going into making you more efficient so you take care of the patients at a higher level. Now also, you've got your management meetings, and this is a challenge because that 2 times a month, and it doesn't have to be 2 times, even if it's once a month where you have a high-level meeting defined. Maybe you go to dinner together. Maybe you do it at lunch, whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is it needs to happen. Where all the things that office managers out there, you may message the doctor and say, I have a question for you. Or doctors, you may bug the office managers with, hey, I've got 2 things I need to know. You're going to have to refrain from it yourself because instead of that, you're going to be writing that information down and you're going to be saving it to your official meeting every month. And I am telling you, it will save you enormous amounts of time. And what you'll inevitably see, I see this with employees a lot, make-believe name. If Judy thinks she's the employee and she thinks she needs an answer to a couple questions, so she goes and knocks on the office manager's door. An office manager's listening. This happens. She asks the questions, whatever they are, A and B. When you don't allow that anymore, and now Judy realizes she has to wait 2 or 3 days before she's going to be able to ask this information and get an answer, what inevitably happens is a lot of times Judy goes and finds a way to answer it herself. So therefore, the questions that otherwise would have been asked to you, they don't even get asked. And it's the same way with management. There's some times where you figure out the answer for yourself, you don't even have to bring it up. But if you can't, write it down. And that's where our Practice Virtual platform is so popular, is you have chat threads. So you have a management chat thread, and everything in there is just you and the doctors, managers, doctors. You guys are just talking to each other in there. You can upload your meeting agenda for whenever you're going to meet, whatever it might be. But these chat threads are based off a topic, another time efficiency strategy of Billionaire. Whenever you go and you are looking through your text thread, but the text thread has 80 different topics in it, it's very difficult to find anything that you're looking for. So our chat thread in our Practice Virtual platform literally is something that you get to create, invite people to that you want to be a part of the conversation in your organization, and then create a topic. The topic could be sterilization room, and then everything in there relates to the sterilization room. It could be supply ordering. It could be a team discussion, ideas to grow the practice. Whatever it might be, it allows you to instantly go to where you're looking, which is a time efficiency strategy of billionaires. Emails are a horrible way to communicate internally. Shark Tank people don't allow it to happen within their organization. And again, it's another part of our time efficiency strategies that we're not going to get into any further today. It's actually going to be a podcast on its own on how to manage your time internally via communication. And this is part of that. This is part of that internal communication and how to manage it. So recap, 2 defined times, 30 minutes each, twice a week, and that is for your employees. All right, stick strong, office managers and doctors. Do not let them come to you and break it. Implement it. See how it goes. Give it time. Work out the kinks. If those times you pick aren't great, the beauty is you switch the times. Very simple. 1 or 2 times a month, doctor and office manager, you have your actual high-level business meeting. You take notes throughout the month in between your meetings, and those are the notes you bring to the table. Doctors, if you have, and this works for you, you can't expect your employees to do it if you don't follow it. If you have 2 or 3 questions, chances are they are not an emergency. It is not something that has to be answered now. The difference is you want it answered now, so you feel like it has to be answered now. That's 2 separate things. You write those things down and you bring them to the meeting. See, all of this ends the, hey, Nancy, got a second? Hey, I got to talk to you about something. It ends that. It allows people to concentrate more on what they need to do, employees included. When they get up to go ask you a question, they're getting up and it detracts them from taking care of the patients, to following up with pending treatment to get people back through the door that didn't buy the first time, from improving themselves, watching training videos, etc., etc., etc. So I hope you enjoy that, guys, today. But pretty simple, right? This is something you guys can implement right away. Time efficiency strategies of billionaires. This is a course that we're actually putting together via video right now. We have it somewhat built out, but it's not in our store. It's in our Practice Virtual platform for our clients, but it is something that's going to be loaded in there. So if you buy our Practice Virtual platform, then it is going to be in there for you. But as a standalone, it is being worked on as a standalone product to buy in our store. And the next couple podcasts, we'll give some promo codes on how to get that once it's built out. And then obviously our Practice Virtual platform at mpguniversity.com/practice virtual. You can learn more about it and purchase that platform on our store. So I appreciate you guys listening today. Go ahead and get this implemented into the practice. It's a simple one, but yet very effective, and it is a game changer for your time. You can see it almost immediately. Hope it helps. Thanks for listening today. Looking forward to some upcoming podcasts. We have a guest coming on that runs the Dental Money podcast, and I'm actually going to be a guest on his show as well, so make sure I'll announce that whenever I've been on it so everybody can listen to that interview. So that's coming up. We have guest Dr. David Boschkin. Nicole Pruitt is TC. They're both new coaches of mine. We've added some really extra awesome things to the new patient group program. So they're coming aboard, going to be interviewing them. Have our Chief Operational Officer, Eric Field, going to interview him. We have some more guests that we're going to do. You guys know we don't do a lot of guests on this show, mainly because I don't trust a lot of people to come on and give you the information that's entrepreneur outside of healthcare-ish. All right, so we're very particular about who we hire as coaches, who we have on as guests, etc. on this show. But we got some good ones for you, as well as some podcasts that are just going to have me talking about bonuses, job descriptions, things like that, documentation. We're going to have, obviously, my co-host, Robert Barton, who's a client of ours. He's going to be coming back on. We're going to talk about some cool things, too. So a lot of good podcasts upcoming. You know, as I talk about the challenges is when you travel as much as I do. You know, I'm the CEO of the company, founder of the company. I'm also a coach for our clients, speaker and consultant for Align. I'm just going to start speaking for OrthoFi here as well. A lot going on, so sometimes it's not always easy getting in the broadcast booth and providing the high-quality content that you guys and our loyal listeners deserve. So I appreciate you guys listening, your loyal followership out there. Remember, please write us a 5-star review about this podcast. Please write us a 5-star review on Google and Facebook about the new patient group as a company. That means a lot to me if you would go out there and do that. And again, remember, go to our store. If you guys aren't a client out there, there's plenty of ways to go in and get courses to become a client, get into the MPG family, see how you like it. It is going to help your business grow, and you can always take the relationship to a newer level at a later time. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week, your upcoming weekend. We will talk to everybody soon. Bye-bye.